And we're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of The Scene. We're here with Shoobie today, and we're going to go for a nice little interview. How you doing, mate? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How about you?
Yeah, how was it? I know you just finished up playing the Steel Series qualifier that was over this weekend, started on Friday. How do you think that went for you guys? How was that? All good?
For us, yeah, I think we actually performed fairly well, all things considered. We kind of just went into it as a bit of a fun event. Um, you know, uh, yeah, we played some decent teams. We played Flight, we beat them. That was good. We played against Chets as well. Got a map off them, which was nice. Almost took that game as well. So yeah, some good performances, and I think overall, something I kind of try to highlight in my tweet after the post event, and I kind of want to make a point of here is again huge thanks to Steel Series himself for actually running something of this, you know,
Mm,
of this caliber because. In the UK, we don't get too many events, and whatever we do, it's always a pleasure to have them. Having more competition and more things to play for is always great. And again, it's something where I hope Steel Series come back with more events, and if they do, I hope the scene backs them in the sense of turning up and playing them, even if it's in a mix, because
yeah.
we need more of these events in our scene.
Yeah, it's good to see it getting encouraged as well. I mean, I was actually wondering when I saw, because I'm obviously a little bit disconnected from it now that I'm not playing so much, but when I saw that kind of come up, it was nice to see that the UKCS Cash Cup that LVN runs obviously moved the dates so that we didn't get confliction going on there. But it was also like I did actually think when I heard about that, like maybe there's a motivation going on there where they saw like how successful that Cash Cup was, and maybe that's why they decided they wanted to come in and do that because they saw how successful it was. I don't know how much that lent into it, but it's just great to get more events going on, especially with everything being online at the moment. It's something to play for, isn't it? Instead of just your ECAs constantly and then having a
Yeah,
big old off season. It's nice to have any little qualifiers that you can play into all the time.
yeah,
Keep
hundred
keep
percent.
keep it nice and fresh.
Yeah.
Talk about the Cash Cup actually. That's coming up pretty soon, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
I think they've pushed it back a month or so for that, so that'll be coming up soon as well. Again, another thing to play for. I mean, the more things to play for, the better. That's the way I see it. I mean, you look at other
Mm,
scenes like the German scene, the Scandinavian scene as a whole. Like everybody else seems to have, you know, 3 to 5 things to play for, whereas we seem to be the only scene where realistically we have ESEA and that's it. So
yeah,
it is nice to have more avenues to get more success and to grow and improve.
yeah.
And it can only help our scene.
I definitely think it's good, like, to get just more official experience, especially for the new guys, the new players. Like, just playing your ESC games, was that twice a week, maybe, or maybe 3 times a week? I'm not sure. That's not a lot of time to outside of prac where you're actually feeling the pressure and playing to win instead of playing just for practice. Because like the ratio of practice to actual officials is mad to me. Like you practice like 20 hours a week probably for most teams, and you actually only play and try
Yeah,
and win 3 or 4 hours a week, if that.
yeah.
Outside
No,
of your pugs
exactly.
and stuff, obviously. So I think the more officials you can get under your belt, the better. So it's good to see like more stuff kind of coming in for everyone to play into. Do you think you're
Yeah.
going to be mixing that then again, or what's on the cards for you
Uh,
guys?
I'm not too sure. I mean, I'm still in a bit of a limbo state, I guess, in the scene right now, in the sense of I'm unsure about like if I'm looking to make a team, if I'm looking to get picked up, if what's happening in that sense. I think at the very least, I know I want to play it because at the end of the day, I enjoy this game. Um, so if there's an opportunity to play it, I will. Whether that's with a mix, whether that's me standing in for somebody, whether that's me building my team before it, not too sure. Um, but yeah, I'm looking to get involved. Yeah, so that's me.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Of the more people we get involved in that, as you said, is the better for the scene. Even if it's just in mixes, it shows that there's the interest there for other people.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of going on a bit of a throwback towards the ESCA, it's almost a shame that the UK Opens don't happen anymore. That we had loads of people attending at them. Back then when you could kind of qualify for EPS through that and stuff like that. I felt that was a bit of a shame that we don't have that going on anymore, but they had their reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, about UK Open again, it's a two-way thing, right? Because yeah, it's a shame they don't run them anymore, but it goes back to me trying to say I hope the scene backs them, right? Because with UK Open, they were towards the end of it, they were only getting like 20 teams or so to sign up, and for a whole division, a whole season to run of just 20 teams, it's kind of it's not the greatest thing. So it's one of them where it's like it's everybody asks for more competitions and more things to play for, but at the end of the day, we as a players need to turn up and actually respect the organizers and actually, respect the time and effort they've gone through to put it on for us to then participate, if that makes sense. So it is a
Yeah,
two-way
no,
thing in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know exactly how you spoke about the German team before. I don't know exactly how they run things, but they've got multiple divisions because they've got so many teams
Yeah.
competing for their national kind of their national cup, I suppose. So it's crazy to me that we couldn't even get 20 teams out, as you said, for that last one of those last couple of opens. So I can see why they retracted that. It probably
Mm,
wasn't worth their time to run, really. But
yeah.
hopefully we're kind of going through a bit of a renaissance and that'll come back soon. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, I would say that now more so than ever. There's a lot. Like I think this past season or so, I've seen how to word I don't know how to word it, but like the most amount of fresh players in the scene, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
it kind of seems like the freshest, I guess, facelift the scene has had in the 3 or 4 years I've been a part of it.
yeah,
It's
I definitely agree.
there's a lot of new names coming through. There's a lot of new teams. So hopefully those numbers start, coming back up for any sort of competition that there is.
I mean, to be fair, mate, I don't even recognise half of the people that are playing tournaments these days. I don't even know who
Yeah,
they are.
Mm,
exactly. And it's like, for example, I mean, the most obvious example is PL, right? You compare PL now to the PL of whenever it first got introduced, and
completely different players now.
completely different.
Yeah.
Probably 10 players from the original PL are a part of PL now, if that.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So the scene itself, obviously, scenes develop, scenes change. But yeah, there's a lot of fresher players, so hopefully that leads to more activity and higher numbers.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going into that, that was kind of that was something I was going to ask you later on down the line, but I suppose we can kind of get into it now because it kind of works nicely. But like I think every scene has this issue, but especially from what I've seen UK and also NA to a larger extent from what I've heard from other interviews, there's a lot of gatekeeping. So the top players just get shuffled around constantly, and you just keep the top players in the top teams. They just constantly trying out different combinations, and it's just not going to work. But then we've had Valorant kind of come in, and a lot of those top players who, whether they were gatekeeping or not, have probably gone on and moved into Valorant now to try and make the money there, make their dough. Do you think that's why we've had such a renaissance? Do you think there's just all of these positions opening up, all the new players have got all the opportunity now? Do you think that's kind of cut into it?
I think that's definitely a big reason. It definitely is a big reason because I mean, you just said it yourself, right? A lot of the top players in the scene were kind of occupying the top spots of the scene. I mean, rightly so because they were the best players at the time, right?
Yeah,
But now that Valorant's come in, a lot of those have shifted over. And the way that I see it from my point of view, a lot of those top players had fairly toxic personalities and things like not all of them to clarify, but a few of them had toxic personalities and things like that. And now that they've moved over, I think it's kind of given room to a lot of the fresher players in the scene to come through. I mean, UMX is a great example of it, right? You know, before Valorant, then players were kind of just hovering around, I guess, main level or maybe even below. I think Giraffe he was in open before he got picked up by them.
yeah. Mazza
Um,
was screwing around in
and
Inter's mixes.
yeah,
I know that for sure.
exactly. So it's like now that the top end of the scene has kind of made way, players like that are given the chance to prove themselves and show that can they carry the scene on the shoulders, I guess, in that sense. And it's good
Yeah,
to see players like the UMX boys and for example the like Doc's line. I don't know, the XVX guys, I guess is the way to say it. Like players like that coming through and actually putting the time in, putting in the graft, and actually showing that look, we could put time in and be just as good as you boys claim you were, if that makes sense. So yeah.
yeah. I think UMX is like that is probably the prime example of what having those people move out of the scene and getting the opportunities can do for like a group of players because even
Mm.
probably a year and a half ago that team could never have existed even if the players probably at that skill level just because there wouldn't have been the opportunities. So to see them doing so fucking well now is incredible to me. Like, that's great to see.
Yeah.
Kind of getting a bit more personal now. You've played for Revenge twice in like different teams and stuff like that. Has that been like a positive experience for you? Like, going back to them, I'd assume that you quite like the org. Are you a big fan, or what kind of
Yeah,
went
I
on
mean,
there?
yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the fact that I try to return to them with a second lineup just shows how much respect I have for Revenge as an org. As an org, they've always been great to me. Zite as the owner now, he's always been great to me. Never had any issues really. They've always been on time with any sort of payments. They've always been supportive. Yeah, I literally cannot say a single bad word about them, to be honest. So, yeah, in terms of my relationship with Revenge, I think even after this lineup, it's still fairly high
Hmm.
with them. So, yeah, huge amounts of respect for him.
That's great to hear. Do you think they'll still be staying in CS? Do you think they're staying in
Um,
the UK CS or are they going to move
I've
on? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard rumblings. I mean, I guess there was the leak, right, of in the previous qualifier where the Jack B lineup,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was a mixed lineup, going under him and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, at the end of the day, I hope they do because as much as the scene lacks competitions and other things, it also lacks backing by organizations. So the more orgs there are out there that are willing to support UKCS, the better. And
Yeah.
Revenge is one of those.
I do think, kind of going back to what we said before about the players having a bit of a renaissance, I think orgs have had the same thing. Like, there's so many more org opportunities, at least from from what I've seen. There's so many more orgs that are willing to put in the time, the effort, the money into like newer players than there were when I first started playing. Like, there just seems to be new orgs popping up everywhere that have got great reputations, which is fantastic to hear.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I haven't
think
heard a horror story for a while from an org that's kind of new coming through. So
yeah. No, that's true, and I think that ties back in with the old, I guess the old top guard of the scene have not passed away. That's terrible choice of words. they've moved on.
They're all dead,
yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. They've yeah. So like since they've moved on, I think orgs are starting to see there's fresher lineups, there's newer players that are coming through, and that's a positive thing, right? Because it shows growth. It shows growth in the scene. It shows growth from these players that 6 months ago you wouldn't have heard of them, and now they're coming through. They're competing decently. Not they're not top of the scene, but they're making their way there, and I think orgs recognize that.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, you can't really avoid it, but with the COVID era of Counter Strike, I mean, think of it from an organization's point of view where you don't have to essentially back lands as consistently,
Yeah,
so it's just
yeah,
cheaper. It's a bigger return for your investment almost as well, which is only going to be beneficial seeing more orgs coming in and out.
yeah. No, 100%. And I think a lot of these orgs, what they do at our level is it is a bit of a it's kind of like going at a casino and just gambling away because like they're just hoping that they just gamble on a team and that team pops off, right? Like realistically, that's what a lot of orgs at our level do. And like you just said, like during this era, the investment is less and the reward is
Mm.
still potentially the same. So if anything, now is the time to get in and see if you could just get it, just get lucky on a team that cracks through the rankings or whatever it is.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think all the orgs will be kind of rubbing their fingers together, looking at you next, thinking, "Can we be the next one? Can we be the next one to get another like
Exactly.
group of players like that? They're just gonna, skyrocket into the rankings out of nowhere, kind of thing."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's great that they're kind of being more risky, kind of, because even now you see like orgs picking up players that aren't that well known. They're just going, they could be great soon, so we're going to take a risk. That's good to see when we need that support from the newer players. So hopefully they
Yeah.
don't fuck it up.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So kind of going back to like speaking about revenge, that whole project that you were kind of running, that's kind of dissolved, that kind of fell through recently. What happened there? Was that a mismatch of roles, or was that kind of a personality attitude issue that you had going on there? What was the deal
Um,
with that?
it was. I think it was definitely more the second point, the personality attitude issue. I think at the end of the day, we had 5 players who were all good players, but for whatever reason, we just didn't click. The chemistry weren't really there. We were a lineup, I think, in the end for about a month and a half to 2 months, if I remember correctly. And to be completely honest with ourselves, there was no real progress being made. There was a lot of the mistakes that we kind of felt we had week one, we still had them towards the end of the lineup, and it never felt like things were improving or going forward. And I think in the end, it was probably best for all of the players to just split apart and try to find new opportunities for ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, was it kind of the basic mistakes that were kind of pulling you back, or?
Just things like the basic mistakes that new teams encounter. So, for example, I mean, the very first thing, the way that I would see it is trying to find your identity as a team in terms of what sort of style do you want to play. Like the way that I see CS nowadays, you need to have multiple styles of CS to play, but you need to have a primary one, something that is your bread and butter.
Mhm.
And it never really felt like we could get into anything like that.
Yeah,
We
you didn't have a
couldn't
groove.
yeah, we didn't have something that we could just rely on and know that is going to work 100%. So that was one of our main issues from an identity point of view. But then, basic things like communication was off. But you expect communication to be off when you start a team. It's
Yeah,
something that comes with time. Like realistically, it takes you a season or two to actually get to a half decent level of communication.
yeah, build the chemistry up.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, but we never really seen any sort of improvements, Like we never went from say 0% good comms to like 5% good comms at least. It was nothing improved, nothing went up.
Yeah.
And yeah, same. yeah, just mistakes like that really is the way that I see
Yeah,
it.
I think comms can really fuck you up. Like I
Hmm.
think that was from all the teams I've played. I think that's probably the biggest limiting factor is just getting getting your comms to a point where they're good enough to like you can play out. Because I felt like in a lot of the teams I played in, we underperformed to how we expected to. I think the main issue was the comms. We just couldn't get the chemistry and the synergy going, and then the team breaks apart for whatever reason.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I
I
think
can see how that might have been there.
yeah, the previous team I was in, so not this one, but the initial revenge lineup, for example, like I felt like we had really good comms in that lineup, and at the same time, the other factor or the other side to that is we were a team for about 10 months straight.
Yeah.
So it gave us a lot of time to actually work hard on those comms and actually think back to, okay, if we encounter this situation again, what is relevant information, what isn't? How
Hmm.
should we be saying certain things? Is there, for example, if I'm in a clutch, do I want to hear a certain bit of info you've just given me? And
Yeah.
you learn what other people like, because at the end of the day, everybody's different. You've got quieter personalities, you've got louder personalities, you've got like somebody like me. If I'm in a clutch, I really hate it when people talk just full stop, because for me, I need like clarity of mind of like, I'm expecting this. I don't want somebody else to throw their opinion in there. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I know players that do like that. Certain players
Yeah.
would want that bit of info thrown in there of, oh, I've heard him go here, like expect him here, or you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
in terms of bringing this back into a team environment, when you're in a team environment, the way that I would see it is, it takes time to understand what your teammates prefer and what they don't, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you just got to find what works for your team.
Yeah. Kind of finding out what they prefer. I can remember
Exactly.
we kind of when I was playing in flight, we kind of ran with if he's low, that needs to be called in clutches, and then ammo. If you've got really low ammo, that's kind of the only things that we ever commed. But
Mm.
again, some players prefer like not to have that at all. And then
Yeah.
I love to hear that sort of stuff because I'm in a clutch and I haven't checked my ammo. If someone comm that for me, that's great.
Yeah.
But it just depends on the person, as you said. Like I think Tim was a perfect example of someone who just wanted, as you said, clarity. Didn't want to hear anything from anyone because he just wanted to be in the moment, which is
Mm.
obviously perfectly acceptable. It's just preference at the end of the day. Whatever's going to get you to win
Exactly.
that clutch is the important thing.
Yeah. And I think to extend on that and just to reiterate the point, it's not necessarily that one way is better than the other. It's
Mhm.
what works for that individual and in turn the team. Like, this is kind of an overarching theme I have on like all of my teams, is that um like a lot of players will say, oh, what do you do? What works for you? And it's like, I can tell you that, but at the end of the day, the number one thing for me is what works for you. Like, the what works for me isn't going to work for you, because I'm a different individual too. You know what I mean? So somebody
Yeah.
might prefer, hard pracking aim for like, I don't know. I used to team with somebody that would do like 20k aim bots a day, and
Jesus Christ.
yeah, and it's like,
Fuck that.
that's not me. Yeah,
No.
I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
RSI at age like 20, no thanks.
Yeah, like literally, he got RSI, and it's like, okay, cool, you've just screwed yourself over. And
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. The point that I'm trying to get at is, I think if I had to give one bit of advice to anybody that's trying to come up, find what works for you. It may take you a month, it may take you a year, but when you find something that works for you, stick with that good habit and run with it. That's what I would
Fortunately,
say.
Yeah.
that's it's not the advice a lot of people want to hear. They want, when they ask you for the advice, they want the cheat code to how am I going to be a top 20
Exactly.
UK player.
Ex-
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, that's the secret to it. That there is no cheat code. I've been in this scene for, I can't remember. I think 4 or 5 years now, or something like that. Yeah, and realistically, it took me 3 years in to realize, oh, this is how you actually run a team. And I only then figured out, okay, this is how you improve. These are the things that I need to do to make my teams work. You know what I mean? So it takes everybody. It might take somebody else half a year to find that. You know, what I mean? It's
Yeah.
everybody's different. Everybody's got their own timeline in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important, isn't it? It's like different people need to, they're naturally good at different things. So what things do you need to work on? Like I think it's a
Exactly.
huge thing in the UK where it's like everyone's just like aim. How do I get better at aiming and killing
Mm.
people? It's like that's not everything. Like that's like if you just hard prac your aim all the time, it's not going to make you the best player you can be. You need to have some variance in there, like demos, aim, movement. There's like tactical styles. How do people play? How do they like to play? There's so many different things to improve on, but everyone's just focused so hard on the aiming side of things. I think
Yeah.
they need to look at everything. If you're gifted at
Yeah.
aiming, then you shouldn't practice that as much, really. But I think that's just
Definitely,
the
there
most
is a
fun thing to
balance.
do. So
Yeah, there definitely is a balance to be found, and I think at the end of the day, the point I'm trying to get at is you as an individual need to find your balance. You know what I mean? Like, if you find, again, reiterating the point, but if you find what works for you, hammer that down and work with that. That's what I would say. Don't,
Mm.
if something works for somebody else, what was it like? Didn't Zaiwu say in a interview recently that he never
Doesn't
DM'd
deathmatch.
and he just
Yeah.
plays pugs? That worked
Mhm.
for him. You know what I mean? But on the flip side, you have somebody like Blame F, right, who says that he needs to DM constantly, like every
Mm.
day. So everybody's got their own formula. Everybody's
He
got
does
their
like
own
2
way.
hours a day, I'm pretty sure,
Something
just
stupid
pure
like that.
deathmatch. Yeah.
Mezzi has a set routine that he's been doing daily, right? Like everybody has their own thing, and
Mhm.
once you find your own thing, then just work with that and do that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. That's damn good advice to take, to be fair, definitely.
Yeah.
Going back to like ex-teammates you've had, obviously. So we kind of spoke a little bit before. Zulu and Fraser, they left the team. The original, the second, sorry, Revenge team. Was that to pursue a different project, or was that just, yeah? What kind of went on there? Was that like did you guys want to get rid of them, or did they leave? How did that kind of all go down?
So I think it was a case of when we were having the conversation of what's actually happening with the team now. Like what's actually going to happen, because it was clear that we weren't going to stay as that current five. Like, it wasn't working.
Mm.
I think Fraser from his POV was like, look, the only player I'd want to carry on with is Zulu, and that's it. And then I guess from Zulu's point of view, he was probably like, yeah, sure, he'll do that. And then from the rest of our POVs, it was kind of like, yeah, we're just going to try to find our own thing. So I think that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, I remember when you originally, I mean, kind of bit of a tangent, but I remember when you kind of picked up Regan originally. How have you found playing with him? Because I remember playing with him. He had fantastic aim individually. The only
Yeah.
thing I ever thought about him was just if he can be more confident, this guy's going to be a monster. How have you found playing with him?
I think, yeah, I do rate him as a player, but there are things that he needs to work on. And I mean, I chat with him daily. I think he knows what those things are that he needs to work on. But yeah, I mean, the guy's only 17. He's one of the crispest players I've played with. Like, aim wise, he's incredible. Some of the
Yeah.
clips I've seen him hit and some of the plays I've seen him do are like top tier. But there are, yeah, it's just a case. I mean, it's with everybody in the scene though, right? Everybody has these super highs, but then it's balanced out with, some certain bad characteristics or whatever. And I think
Hmm.
with him, if he just finds that balance and tries to, work on himself and improve on himself, he could be a very, very good player. But
Yeah.
it's up to him to make that change. Everybody else can sit in a team speak all day telling him he needs to do this, he needs to do that, but it's only going to come from him to go and make that change. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
It
I
needs
think
to
that
be
applies to a
internal.
lot. Exactly, and that applies to a lot of players in the scene. It's not just Regan, but yeah, in Regan's case in particular, yeah, it does apply to.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to see him do really well. I mean, he definitely has, the ability. It's just a question of if he wants to go for it, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But he is only 17, so he's got loads of time to kind of make that decision.
Yeah, he's got years.
He's
got
got
so
age
much
on his
time.
side, isn't he? Yeah.
Literally, yeah. As opposed to me, I'm 24. I'm already building, and I
All going
can't
wrong.
keep up with him. You know what I mean? But
Getting
yeah,
too old. Yeah.
he's
I mean, honestly,
yeah.
I'm only 21 myself, but I'm just thinking, like, even when I was playing for Flight, and I was really enjoying it at one point, especially, but I was still just thinking, there are people that are like 15 that are already like so far ahead of me,
Yeah.
both individually and understanding of the game. Like, how are you going to compete with these people when they're 15 and they're that good already? Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to stand a chance, are you? In some
My
sense.
yeah. No, and I think it's natural for everybody to have that thought, but that whenever that thought creeps up on me, or whenever I hear other people speak similarly to you, the number
Hmm.
one thing I always say is stop comparing yourself. Because at the end of the day, it comes back to what I said before, right? Of the whole find what works for you point. It's at the end of the day, and this may sound cliche or whatever, but everybody is different and
Yeah.
everybody has their own paths. Like, for me, I only started playing CS when I was 18. So it's gotten to 24 now, and I feel like I'm at a decent level, but obviously, realistically, I'm not going to become a pro. Like, I know that. But, somebody might have started, like Fluffs, for example, started super young, and he's improved a lot. And it's like, Regan is very skilled at 17. Like, all of these players, there's a lot of players that are, I'll admit, they are way more skilled than me, and they are way younger than me.
I
But
mean, it's an
yeah,
interesting thing. I don't know when's the last time you really watched one of the kind of majors and they do the player profiles. How many times you see my older brother played it? I started when I was 8 years
yeah,
old. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
what chance do you
But
have?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
there could be
exactly.
something
And
like
it's
that.
like, but then on the flip side, like, the thing is if you really wanted to, you could cherry pick a story and try to compare yourself to that to
Mm,
make you look like you're in a better light. So I think the example I use is Bentet right now. He's like 25, I think,
Mhm.
and he only realistically got a chance like a year ago or so. Like,
Yeah.
so basically my age, and then he got a chance to prove himself at a pro level.
Mhm.
Mezzi is only, I mean, he's like 22 or 23 now, right? I think
Yeah.
Thomas is also 23 or so. Like, but then on the flip side, you can say, I don't know, Monsey, that guy's like 15 or 14, right?
Yeah, a
Like,
load of the Gambit players, the same. They're all really young and just
yeah.
incredible.
And the point I'm trying to make here is that if you really want to, you could cherry pick a story and be like, oh yeah, I'm never gonna be as good as that.
Mhm.
Or instead of that, you could just
mm.
focus on yourself and you could just be like, look, I'm just gonna improve myself. I'll see where I get. Maybe I'm pro, maybe I'm not. Who cares? But I'm just gonna focus on me. And
You do what you can.
I mean, do you
instead of
remember?
comparing yourself,
Do
yeah,
you,
I was gonna say, just finish the point.
you go, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. I just finished the point. The only person you should realistically compare yourself to is yourself
Mm,
the day before. That's the way I see it. So, am I better than where I was a day before, a week ago, a month ago? If I am, then I'm moving in the right direction. That's realistically the only person you should be comparing yourself to, and like the only person you should, or the only, yeah, it's the only comparison that matters. Is the way I see it.
Yeah, it's a good philosophy to go by in everything, really, isn't it, in life?
mm,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
the way I see it.
kind of backing up your point, I just looked 'cause I remembered one of the G2 players was I remember hearing somebody say that they started really late. So Jax, I don't know how long he's been in this like playing really hard for, but I know that he only got his shot recently in G2 like within the last 2-3 years, and he's 28.
There
So
you go.
he kind of got that shot really late. So it's definitely not unheard of that you can get to the tier 1 level,
wasn't
even if you're in your mid 20s.
wasn't Jax playing for like a team that was like 80th in the world at the time? Like before he got his move to G2, like it was one of the
I think it was
biggest.
even lower than that.
It it,
Yeah.
it was no, it was like they had the biggest recorded jump, didn't they? Because they qualified for is it a one of the major challenges, or it was like they come close to it like 2 years ago, and they jumped from like 180 to 110 or something. It was like an 80 point jump at the time.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
he'd already been playing for a long time. He was playing in like kind of third tier, second tier French teams, which are still very good teams comparatively to a lot of other countries, but still.
Yeah. It's that guy is a perfect example of, it's never too late if you really want it, if you really want to go for it. So,
Exactly.
it's kind of
Yeah.
conversely to what I originally said about being super young.
Yeah.
So, kind of getting a bit more broad spectrum now. So we've just finished obviously a season of the ESEA. The UK team that was in main, Giant Squid, their IGL stepped down, and I believe Jin's got kicked or was left, or left. I'm not sure exactly what went on there. What do you think about that team? Where do you think that team's going? Do you think that's prominent, like something a team we should watch out for, or just kind of going to stay there? Where do you think they're going?
Did they? Sorry, you said that they just dropped Intus, right? If I heard that correctly.
I
Or
think they're still in. I think they're still in management. I think they dropped a
oh,
player as well.
oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're a bit of a, I guess, a low key team. Like they're not many people really know them in the scene, and stuff like that. I've had my past experiences with Prinny. Yeah, I guess probably better not to talk about that. But I'm not, I don't really see that team. Fair play, they got promoted into main. I think they just scraped main, or maybe they've been relegated to Inters. I'm not too sure.
I can have a look now. I think they stayed in.
Yeah, I mean, kicking their IGL isn't really a good sign. I mean, for Jins in particular, it's kind of rough on him, right? Because he had this breakthrough with you boys in I guess the original Hypnotic / Flight, and then now getting kicked isn't really a good look for him, especially considering he rose with you guys, then tried to jump ship, and now he's been dropped. So I mean, a gamble in his side, a gamble that didn't pay off. It's unfortunate. I mean, as much as I guess maybe from your perspective you might say something on this, it probably, I don't know the situation. You know more than me. Maybe he snaked you. Maybe he just wanted to move on to a different project.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
one,
I think
yeah,
I think I've said it before to people. Like, I don't blame him for leaving. Like, if you aren't comfortable in a team and you don't enjoy playing anymore, then talk to people about it.
yeah,
Was always my philosophy. Like, we went through like a really long process before I got benched from that team where I was like, I'm not enjoying playing anymore. I want to stop, or like I want to have less. I want to have a break so that I can try and like get my love back for the game. I was really vocal about it, and they were all aware that I was struggling quite a lot. But by the time they got the opportunity to get Dexy, I was very happy to be benched because we tried everything we could. But the way he did it was just the issue that I think a lot of us had was just like one day gone.
It was
Like
more
didn't
the
even
way
discuss
he's
the
gone
issues he
about
was
it.
having. Yeah,
Anyway, lads,
exactly.
I'm off. Best of luck.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know how it kind of went down with the Giant Squid team. I just checked they are still in main, but I think
Okay.
I don't even think he was IGLing. I think Rome was IGLing, and I think he stepped down. I think he
Ah,
wanted to
fair
stop playing, so I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know what role Jins was in, but
yeah, more power to him. If he stepped down, decided not, he didn't want to play, then fair play. That's
yeah,
he's able to do that. The one thing I would, I mean, he was IGNing for you guys, right? If I remember correctly, or am I
yeah, he was
incorrect in saying
IGLing
that? Yeah.
for us.
One thing I would say about the IGL, I'm not saying that you guys would have done this, but from previous experience I've had, is it does seem like you kind of get screwed. At least within the scene, you do get screwed as an
Mhm,
IGL when it comes to roster moves and climbing up the
definitely.
ladder.
Hmm.
So maybe he saw that as an opportunity, to move up the ladder and just take the opportunity for himself. Like I've been a victim of it too many times where I've tried to put others ahead of myself, and then like let's say for example, an opportunity arises for me, I turn it down, but then an opportunity arises for them, and they just jump ship instantly just because
Yeah,
it is a
take the
step
first
up.
offer they get. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like fair play that they are able to do that. And I guess everybody in the scene will try to find think what's better for themselves as opposed in the short
yeah,
term
of
as opposed to
course.
long term. So maybe that's the point of view who's looking at it from. And
Mm.
yeah, who knows? You'd have to ask them about that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as
Yeah,
you said, he might have just wanted to get out of the role, get into a rifle
exactly.
position, so he can get their stats padded up a bit and look more appealing to other teams. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just wasn't enjoying it anymore. Who knows? Um, yeah, the communications aren't exactly open there, so I'm not going to find out. I don't think.
Fair enough.
So you just said you've been screwed over a couple of times, which I think a lot of IGLs will say the same thing. It's very easy to just kind of blame the IGL if things don't go well. But you've played very well in a lot of different teams, and you've had some really good performances. What do you think made you a great IGL? In the scene, what do you think really made you stand out?
I don't know if I'd say I'm a great IGL, but I do appreciate the kind words. From my point of view, that I guess I'm not too sure. I mean, I think it's going back to, and I'm sorry for keep on hammering on about the same point, but it's I found what works for me. I
Hmm.
found how I can get the most out of myself, and in turn, the most out of like the teams that I operate within. Because I mean, let's say for example, you look at my stats, and my stats are terrible. I'll be the first one to admit that, but I will then also point to how what's our win loss record looking like, because that's the only stat I really care about. So the way I
Yeah.
see it is that in my head, I've figured out the style of CS I want to play, the style of CS I want to call, and then on top of that, I think I've been in enough teams and encountered enough people in my life to understand how to manage situations and actually, not just be an in-game leader, but an actual leader. Because I've experienced many teams, many different styles of players, many egos, essentially.
Hmm.
So I think it's gotten to a point where I understand what a certain player will need to get the most out of them, and
Yeah.
I could recognize that fairly quickly. From my point of view, anyways, I think I could recognize that fairly quickly. So
I
that's
think that is
yeah,
important. Like, 'cause there's different leadership styles you get, where it's like you get someone who's extremely intelligent and can bring out the real best tactical side of things. But if they don't know how to manage people, then they're fucking useless as an IGL because they
exactly.
won't get the best out of their players. And then
Yeah,
conversely, if you've got really great understanding of people, but then you don't have a tactical mind, it's going to be hard to get the best
yeah,
out of your team because you're not going to be able to put put the people in the right positions. So if you can kind of combine them both, I think that's the way you're going to get the best results. At least from my perspective, anyway.
yeah. No, that's definitely it. I mean, the way that I see it, there's more to the game than just the game. At the end of the day, like especially within our scene, you've got to manage egos, you've got to manage personalities, you've got to when you build a team, there's more to it than just is that player good, yes or no. It's more
Mhm.
what is that player good at, and is that what I need? And it's like figuring out that build up of a team, and then yeah, once you're in that team, figuring out how to get through to certain people. Like the example I would use to anybody, um, is in my previous sort of the Lions Creed / Revenge lineup that I was in. The way that I approached things with Iphon was a lot different to the way that I would approach things with like Yelm or Fluffs. Like I recognize that each individual is different, and each individual actually responds and learns differently. So
Yeah.
you have to manage that. I mean, if you're going to be one of these sort of people that's just like it's my way, or it's up to you to adapt to me, then you're just being stubborn at that point, to the point where you're wasting time because you're never going to get through to that person. Like, you need to
Yeah.
realize how to get through to that person if you want to make that lineup work. If not, boot them and stop wasting everybody's time. Is the way I see it.
Yeah. I think standing kind of like observing as I was playing and then kind of stepping away from things, I definitely think that's a big issue that people have is not understanding the roles that they need for their team. Like, this person's got great stats, let's pick them up. It's like, yeah, but how are they going to fit into your team? You know, do you need another entry fragger when you've already got one who's really good and then a second, entry that's great as well? Do you really need another one? Probably not. You kind of need someone that's going to be more of a lurker or more of a support player kind of thing. I think a lot of people just like good stats, we'll get that person. And I think they need to that kind of needs to change if we're going to, improve as an overall scene, is picking the players for the roles rather than their stats.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think there's so many elements to what can make up a team and what can make up players. Like, you might want. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, you could just pick up all the best players in the world. Like, you could just right now go to Inter's main, whatever, look at UK players, find the 5 best players stats wise, pick them up and make a team. But that's probably not going to work, because then you're going to be playing people out of position. You're not going to be giving people roles. You might have like too many players that are loud, because you kind of need a balance between loud players and quiet players. But then also not too quiet, because then they might not communicate at all. And there's a balance of things that you need. There's a lot of things that you need to balance. And yeah, I think it's a very naive mindset to just think 5 best players, pick them up, and they're going to own it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that super teams don't exactly work as you intended. That phase lineup from, was it 2018, should have been, in theory, the best team in the world. But as you said, the roles weren't, really right for them, and it stopped working because of that in the end. And the personalities were an issue and everything. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that there's the evidence to support that really out there, isn't there? So what kind of IGLs were you when you were coming up through the scene, when you were becoming an IGL originally? Who were the people that you looked up to, both like internationally and nationally? Who would you really look up to, and did you have a lot of demo watching of them and how the comms they had? What did you kind of do to get into that?
Internationally, so in other words, pro scene wise, Fallen was like somebody I looked up to, because when I was just whenever I was just watching Pro CS, I used to watch a lot of Pro CS. Like, I was a huge like Luminosity fan, because when I seen them come through, like the first tournament I watched them in, they got 16-0, and then they went back, or like they ended up in the final of that same tournament or something like
Wow.
that. And it
Underdog
was
story.
one of them was like, yeah, underdog story. So I kind of
Yeah.
like that, and then I just followed them, and it's like when Fallen and like Fair and all them were like coming up as the Brazilian boys, like you could just see that they were like grinders. Like, they had a proper strong mentality of like, we need to make this work and all that sort of stuff. So it's like there's a
Hunger.
lot of elements about that story. Exact hunger, yeah. Like, a lot of elements of that story that I really liked. And then just see at the start of CS they played, like, it was very loose, and like I mean, also, yeah, Fnatic back with their Pronax, like that's another example of a team I used to look at, and I was like, yeah, it's really good, because it's like, it's a loose CS, but it's structured loose in a way. It was very cool to
balance.
watch. Yeah, it was a very cool style to watch. But yeah, I think internationally those were sort of the teams I looked at. But eventually you get to a point where it's like, again, bringing it back to a point I said before, focusing on myself. Like, what can I do to make it work for me, and figuring out my calling style and stuff like that. I think locally within our scene, I mean, there aren't many IGLs really. I think when I
Yeah.
was coming up, like, I'm trying to think. I'm
I
not
think that's
really sure.
definitely like, it proves a point when you really try and think about like who are the best IGLs in the scene. It's hard to come up with names. Like, that's probably a drought we
Yeah,
definitely
because
have in this
it's
scene.
not necessarily a question of like that UK IGL are necessarily looked up to, right? Now it's becoming a question of what UK IGLs can I think of?
Yeah. Who even is an IGL
Yeah,
consistently?
I mean, somebody that I do have respect for actually is Emperor. Like, that's because and I think, yeah, he's also been another player that I've seen him just build lineups from scratch and take him to a decent place within the UK. At least when he was playing, like, this is years ago I'm talking about. He would build a lineup, take him to a fairly decent level. Like, he would like mold players and improve them. So that's somebody UK wise that I do have respect for in that sense. But yeah, I think in terms of looking at an IGL to kind of like inspire myself or whatever, sure, like Fallen and maybe Pronax originally, but
Yeah.
eventually it just became me focusing on me and how do I make myself
Mm.
better, if that makes sense.
I mean, there's a lot, all the elements in CS that I kind of ever train myself is all stuff you can kind of self-teach. But IGLing, I never tried a hand at it, but I can imagine it's probably the hardest thing to work on because it's like you can't watch demos on that, you can't watch VODs or peer reviews. You just gotta. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah, how do you even learn that? I guess you just do repetition.
It's
Keep trying to call.
it's trial and error. It purely is
Yeah.
trial and error. Like I said earlier, it took me probably 3 years to figure out, oh, this is probably how you grow a team, and this is, I reckon, how you
Mhm.
call. Like, it did take me that long. It's even to this day, I'm not going to try to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm the best IGL in the UK, because I'm probably not. And there's a lot to IGLing where something that works one day isn't going to work the other, and it's a massive balancing act. But in terms of how to learn, I think for me it was just trial and error. It really was, like, calling different styles, calling in different teams. Like, again, the way I see IGLing, it's not necessarily just IGLing. It's more being a leader, being like a man manager or whatever.
Mhm.
So dealing with different player personalities and things like that. It just comes over time, I think. And some
Yeah.
people are going to pick it up quicker, some people aren't. It really is just individually how you absorb things, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, talk about like egos and stuff like that. I've heard people say that it's a lot easier to, as an IGL, it's a lot easier to manage and motivate and teach EU players because they're more focused and more driven and more disciplined. Have you had any experience with that, or have you just kind of stuck to the home grounds? Have you kind of stuck to UKCS the whole way through your
So
seasons of experience, or?
the main European players I've played with is the main players I can think of off the top of my head is one Ezo in the Revenge lineup, and then
Mhm.
two was the Bulgarian lineup I built before this current Revenge lineup, the one that we never really got to play officials with. And across all of those, like, yeah, comparatively, they're easier to work with, in my opinion. Like, they're easy to work with in certain things, but not in others. So they're easy to work with in the sense of they do want to improve, but I, from my experience, I wouldn't say it's because they're European. I would just say it's just because how they are. Like, you don't have to be non-UK to be able to be driven and actually want to improve. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
certain in every scene, there's good attitudes, there's bad attitudes. So I think I just got lucky with the European players that I played with. There's
Mhm.
probably hundreds of stories of certain European players that are toxic and are not easy to get along with and things like that. Um, but yeah, from my point of view, I think I was I was lucky with the players that I played with in that
Yeah,
sense.
for sure. I mean, I'm guessing you vetted them quite a lot before you even, picked them up or chose to play with them anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, with Ezo, we trialed him quite a bit. There was a massive trial process we had when we were looking for that fifth for like about 2 weeks to a month, if I remember correctly. Like, we were trying quite a few players. And then in the Bulgarian lineup, so the main person out of that, which I kind of like linked up with, was X-Brand, or Chris is his actual name.
Mhm.
So yeah, with Chris, he was actually part of the trial process before, but then we picked up Ezo, and then I mixed a season with him and also just spoke to him, and yeah, I get along really well with him. And then also Lasco came on board, and yeah, it's just one of them. Yeah, kind of vetted them, and it's just at the end of the day, if you get along with somebody, you get along with them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, the chemistry's going to be there easier, isn't it?
exactly, yeah. So that's the way I see it.
That was the TLR lineup that you tried to build, was the Bulgarian one, right? What happened there?
Correct.
What happened with those players?
At the end of the day, they got an offer which they at the time felt was better in terms of the opportunities it was going to provide. I don't want to speak too much on what it would have provided because I'm not sure if they'd want me to say that. But
Mhm.
essentially, it was the simple case of they got an offer, they thought it was going to be better for them, so they tried to pursue it. Um, so yeah, it's as simple as that, really. And it comes back to the point I was saying before of, like, players at the end of the day. Like, I still get along with them boys. Like, I love them boys, but people will just look out for themselves. Like, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah,
kind of what you got to do to a certain extent. So yeah, fair play to them.
yeah. If it really is the best choice, then I don't think anyone will really harbour any disrespect for you. It's a case of those, and it's like the short-term, long-term argument. Is this going to be good
Exactly.
for you long-term? If it is, then hey, I think everyone is quite happy to see people going to get better opportunities if it's going to work for them long-term. But if you see people making short-sighted decisions, I think that's when people start to have issues.
Yeah. No, exactly.
You've been playing in, the UKCS scene for, I think, what did you say, like 4 or 5 years, did you say before?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, we've had the Endpoint Academy come in recently that a lot of people think has done a lot of good. What do you think needs to be done to kind of take us up to that next level to really get us up there again, get us back to the not to the top, so to speak. That's a while away, but get us competitive again. What do you think needs to be done there?
I think simply put, teams need to be built with the idea of trying to trying to build a team looking at role wise in terms of like, you know, again, so what we were saying earlier, like not picking 5 players that are just star players, like picking players that could be built together and could grow together. Like mindsets need to be improved in terms of players need to start thinking long term. In my opinion, that, you know, if you're looking for short gain, you're not going to find it in this game. You really aren't. The best lineups that I've seen over the years, so the original Vex lineup with Adam and Fraser and all of them, they were together for a while before they even did anything. Um,
Mhm.
the Revelation lineup with Hawk, JSav, and all of them, they were together for a while before they did anything. Even from my own experience, the Lions Creed Revenge lineup, which realistically is probably the best lineup I've been a part of. Like I said earlier, we were together for 10, 11 months, and I see it time and time again that lineups that stick together for a longer time generally improve more because things get easy. I mean, currently right now, UMX, perfect example of it. They've been
Yeah,
that core of that has been together for as long as I can remember.
yeah,
They were
yeah.
still
About for a
playing.
while.
They were still playing when I was in the previous Revenge lineup with Ivan and
Yeah,
Yelm and all that. Like they've
I
been
think they
together
were
that long.
Chrome. I think Artis was
Yeah,
originally
Chrome.
Chrome player, wasn't he, with some of those
Hmm.
players? So
Yeah,
they've
like
been going together for a long
they've
time,
been
as you
together
said.
for a while now, and it's a very simple formula. Obviously, you need to do something with that time that you spent together, but
Mm.
you know, that to me is like the number one part of the recipe. And in order to do that, you need to have players that you get along with. Simply put, like that's the way I see it. Like the culture within a team, I think is a very underlooked factor of how to make teams last and stick and actually improve. Like if you have a culture of it within a team where everybody enjoys the game, everybody enjoys each other's company and presence, and you know you're not really flaming each other, and you're level headed about situations, whether good or bad. Like that's how you take things to the next level. That's how you improve as a lineup. At least from my personal experience, that's how it's been. So yeah,
Yeah, no, 100%. I'd agree with that. I mean, that was always. I mean, I think when I've been removed from teams before, that's always been my philosophy after being removed from them is let's build something that we can do long term. Like this is going back a while ago now, but I remember when I made the original socially team
yeah,
that I played for, that whole project I built with the idea that all of these players should stick together for as long as we can and build something long term, which unfortunately didn't work out, obviously.
yeah. I mean, it didn't, but
But
you guys were making good progress with the time that you
oh
had. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And it's like,
exactly. That
yeah,
was kind of where it felt like it was going, was like, let's just keep, build this brick by brick. It's just going to get better and better from here.
yeah,
And it was a shame to me that we got like one good showing off, and then it kind of just went downhill from there. Kind of just fell apart afterwards,
yeah,
which is a shame. But I do think it is getting better. Like I'm seeing more and more teams with new players sticking it out for longer, which I think we need to see more of, especially in calls. I mean, I think every team is going to struggle to keep the same 5 for a really long time because, as you said before, people get different offers they can't refuse, or they want to stop playing for whatever reason. But if you can keep like threes, the core of the team together for a really long time, like as you just said with UMX, that's where you're going to get the most work done because you're not kind of rebuilding every season. You've got something left every season, even if one or two people walk away, you've still got something to build off of.
yeah. And even like basic concepts again, like you know, bringing it back to the communication point. Like for me, I always feel like the longer you play with somebody, the better you're going to be able to play with them. Like, you know, you understand what each other prefers in certain situations. You understand what they don't. You know, some teams might prefer a more explosive style, and if you've played together with other players, you're going to be more comfortable and used to thriving in those sort of chaotic situations. But then you might have other players that, you know, they prefer more passive situations, kind of like, you know, you get the kill off a default and you freeze and you hold and wait for everything. Like you're only going to understand what other people like the more you play with them and
Yeah,
understand what works for your team again. Like that only will come with time. And as he said, if you have a core set of players that understand that, then they could just, you know, whoever they get in, they could just plug them in and just be like, look, this is what you're going to do in these sort of situations. This is what works for us,
yeah.
and just go with that. So
I
yeah,
definitely think as well, joining a lineup and seeing they've got those systems in place and they've got a philosophy, the style of play like you spoke about before, it just makes it so much easier to slot in and work it out. Like it's very quick. You can pick up very quickly. Like this team likes to play like this. They're going to want me to do this in this scenario. And if you're attentive to what they're doing, you can pick it up pretty quick, which I think is important. Like I remember I definitely felt that when I joined what was Hypnotic at the time. I slotted into that team and I had a very good idea of what they wanted me to do most situations very quickly, even from our prac games. From like within the first week or two, I felt super comfortable and I knew what they wanted me to do nearly every round, which I think is really underrated that you can have that culture, that good culture, that good system already in place that means a player or two going isn't going to destroy you every season kind of thing.
yeah, no, 100%.
Oh, I mentioned a little before the Endpoint Academy. Do you think that whole rebrand of the UK circuit, do you think that's done a lot of good?
Um, I like the fact that there's prizes in there. But I think that's not necessarily something new. I like certain things, but at the end of the day, I think it's the issue with PL was never necessarily the organization of it. It was always the players within it. Like,
Yeah.
do players play? I mean, even now that there has been the rebrand of it and it is still fairly active, but towards the end of like the last 2 seasons, I think like it gets inactive and things like that. So again, it's the way I see it, it's more the players, not necessarily the organization or the makeup of the hubs. But I think it's good to see that there's a bit of an investment back into it. There's decent prizes again. The chair thing that's created a bit of a good
Yeah.
a good
It's good to see that on Twitter and stuff.
yeah, it's a feel good type of thing. You know what I mean? Like if you're in the middle of a game and you have a decent clip, like everybody's instantly shouting like, "Yo, that's a chair, that's a chair!" Like
Yeah.
it's a fun little thing. You know what I mean? Like things like that is good. So yeah, no, I think it has only done good, but again, I do think it comes back to players to make sure that they actually capitalize off this, these good opportunities that we have right now.
Yeah, I definitely think there is more and more opportunity every day. The more I see stuff, the whole Endpoint Academy thing, that would have been, that's done. I mean, I think the execution in the sense of the way they're kind of dealing with teams isn't so good, but that kind of opportunity is great because I
Yeah,
bet you there'll be loads of people now thinking, if one of those players does eventually leave, I really want to get into that team. There's motivation there, isn't there?
yeah,
Even if they're
yeah.
not in this, if they didn't get through this draft process on step 1, 2, 3, whatever, there's opportunities there maybe at some point, and people will work towards that. I think it definitely is good in that sense. But as I said just then, like seeing that there are people that are already in teams that are still in that trial process, how do you kind of take that? Do you think that's an issue?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think I said this recently as well. Like the intentions of Endpoint, YE, whoever is actually running the whole academy thing, the intentions are clearly good, and the opportunity is a very good opportunity. It's something that should be welcomed in the scene. But I do think that the way they've gone about it is not the best. I mean, the fact that it's spread over a whole season and a bit, and like you said, that there's players that applied in there while they were in teams. So let's say for argument's sake, if I'm in a team and I've grinded a season, we've made progress. If a player now decides to go and leave, then I don't know. It kind of just doesn't feel right. Is the way I see it. As much as it is good, and it shouldn't be understated that it is a good opportunity for players and things like that. Uh, I just think that they could have sped up the process a bit more. Something it feels like the execution has been poor. I mean, for example, having a whole episode where they're just sat there saying, "Okay, this guy's active, this guy isn't, this guy, passes this certain criteria, which is like objective criteria, not something that you need to." It feels like it's not something you need to make an episode for. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm the only one that feels that, but I just feel like they're dragging it out, and it just they're dragging out elements that don't need to be dragged out. Realistically, this
Yeah,
process could have been done within you know, a month, if that.
yeah.
It,
I definitely feel like
yeah,
this process where they had all the teams play against each other and see how they all perform. I don't know how good that is as a metric for measuring the players, but it definitely shouldn't have taken this long to get to that
yeah.
point. Like
It's
if
good
they'd squeezed
entertainment.
that in a bit, then yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
but I think that should have been done a lot earlier in the
yeah.
process. Um, but yeah, it is crazy to me that you're seeing people that are going to come right up to the day before a season, like a week or so before the season starts, and they might lose a player. I think that whole off
Exactly.
season is going to be, you're going to lose a lot of the progress you've made in that off season, and I think that's going to be really hard for a lot of new teams.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
I think, like, I mean, I'm not. I don't get why. I don't know. There's a lot about it. I just feel like, did they really need to drag it out for so long? Like,
Mhm.
it could have been. At the end of the day, this is going to be a team which is competing. Like, are they
oh,
even going to have?
100%. I think
Are
it'll
they?
be a very good team,
Well,
definitely.
yeah,
I've
it
got
will
no
be a
doubt
very
about
good
that.
team, but like, are they even going to have time to prac? Like, when is the team actually going to form? Because the off seasons are a lot shorter now that ESCA are doing 4 seasons a year, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
like, when are they actually going to form, and when are they actually going to start pracking? And
yeah.
like, uh, I don't know. There's a lot of question marks around it, and I feel like they've just dragged on elements that didn't need to be dragged on. I think again, I
It's
don't want it to be missed that it's a good opportunity and it is going to
Definitely.
provide good
Mhm.
and it is going to end up being good. I just feel like it's been dragged out way too long to the point where it's unhealthy for the scene.
well, it's an interesting
I
point
think it
that.
is good to go on.
Well,
You go, Harky.
I was just
Say
gonna
what
say,
you're going
like,
to say.
someone put in the chat, and it's an interesting point, is that, I mean, look, Empire have already got a main team, as in they've got a first starting lineup with, kind of what was it, who's in it now, Thomas and that, those guys kind of things. But
Well, Mighty
Thomas
Max
isn't
and all
playing
that,
in
yeah,
them
yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Mighty Max,
I don't even.
Surreal, Crucial,
There you
yeah,
go. So these,
Flames,
so these guys. But
Robin. Yep.
it's interesting that this whole thing has been basically a big PR thing for them. Now, I'm not downplaying that it's going to be a good opportunity or anything like that, but to drag it out longer. I mean, we've done 3 episodes now. I mean, we've talked about it on every single episode, and we're probably going to
yeah.
continue talking about it long after that team's going to be tracked. So the longer they drag it out, while it is detrimental to other teams, it's not going to be particularly positive. It is going to give them more exposure. And at the end of the day,
Mhm.
it's only
Right.
beneficial to them, whether they succeed or not. So
I think
it's
I
That
think
is
as
very
well, like
true.
you kind of said like you weren't sure about how this team was going to practice. They did say, I remember at the start, that they're going to be getting in players like Mighty Max on good IGLs or good people who've got a really good understanding of the game to help that team out. So I do think I agree, like not having an off season to really drill these players, it is also going to be good that they're going to get a lot of very experienced players helping them. Like they'll be able to skip a lot of that transition phase that a lot of teams struggle with, like that first month where you're trying to work out everything. It's going to be a lot faster. You're going to get through that transition phase a lot faster, I think, with all of that external help from coaches that have got great experience and can give you really good, important advice.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, I mean, I'm seeing certain people in chat also say like, they are getting the content out of it, they are getting the entertainment out of it, and I get your point, Harky, about like dragging it out and giving them more exposure, and that is probably true. There's probably not probably there definitely are things that we don't understand from our point of
Of
view,
course.
but they do from within theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in terms of why they need to drag it out and all that. But speaking from a player point of view, like for me in particular, right? Let's say right now I'm in a place where I want to build a team. I might I can't really necessarily look at the players that are stuck within that endpoint academy process, and I don't really know when that's going to actually end. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
Like, and that to me makes my job harder, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So it longs out for me. And okay, let's change of perspective. If I'm somebody like for example, Hypnotic is a great example, right? They've got 2 players right now in their team, but is also in the endpoint academy process,
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
both, the
and
star
they're both
star
very
jewels of
important
that team.
players, very
Yeah.
important players for that team. So, like, if I was Konzi or whoever else in that team, it's a bit of a weird point in time for me. It's like, what's happening now? Like, you know, d- one week I might have this team, and next week I'm going to be LFT. Like,
Hmm.
I get it from Endpoint's point of view. It's going to give them more exposure and all that, but it's a case of it does screw players over. It will be screwing players over.
So we've
Like,
got
and
here the
yeah,
process ends on the 5th of April officially. So that's going to be the 5th of April is going to be
Hmm.
the cutoff. White is just said in the chat here. But yeah,
okay,
it's just an interesting point. I mean, like, even if it comes down to the fact whether they've done it intentionally or not, we'll probably never know. They might not have. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. They might not have. But at the end of the day, Endpoint as an organization, you know, they're only going to be loyal to Endpoint. I mean, realistically, as
yeah,
an org, why
yeah.
do you care that other teams? I know it's not the morally right thing to do, but why would you care? It's at the end of the day, you want the best players for your team. Uh,
The yeah, I
so
do agree with that. Sorry to cut you off. I was gonna say I
no,
do
no, go.
agree with that, but at the same time, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn,
Hmm.
but haven't they been saying that this whole process is about giving back to the scene and kind of rebuilding the scene and revitalizing
Hmm.
the scene?
Yeah, but who does it say
And
that?
if yeah, no,
Like,
my point is if you do have that intention, then you should also give a bit of a courtesy to
Mhm.
other people in the scene. Like if you, and again, like I do believe their intentions are good, and I'm saying it again and again because I don't want what I'm saying to get misconstrued. Like
Yeah, of course.
it's a
This is
good
all
opportunity.
it's all
It's a
speculation
very good
from our.
opportunity.
I'll just say for everyone that we're not kind of
Yeah,
slandering the
yeah.
Endpoint
No,
Academy. We're just giving like
like
kind of
over
devil's
everything,
advocate.
100% over everything. I do rate this opportunity.
Yeah,
In
same.
hindsight, I should have applied. Like I'll say that straight on this on this thing. I should have
I
applied.
think everyone should have applied just in case.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's a good opportunity. It's just the way that they're going about it. In my opinion, it could have been executed better. I haven't really
Mm.
paid attention to
Well,
chat, but I think either White is saying the same thing. So
yeah, it's the first time round. To be fair to them, like I said, I mean, Endpoint
exactly.
historically, it's not like they're known as a shady organisation. I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah.
They've been pretty reliable when it comes to things like that. And I mean,
I think
Whitey's
as
running
well.
it. He's pretty trustworthy.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the community got a lot
Yeah.
of respect for Whitey.
I think he also did have some like a very very bad illness as well over the process, which did slow it down by a week. But
Yeah.
that probably was a contributing factor in that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, I would honestly, as much as it's a bit of I think it's not that great for those players and those teams that relate to those players. But I think when that team does form, I think it will be great
Yeah.
for the scene to watch because I think they will do really fucking well.
Well,
Yeah.
Whoever they decide to choose.
Go on, Harky.
I was just going to say, imagine how great it's going to be for that team if they go on to be, kind of another UMX. Like that's how that's going to be, where if they go on to really make some, clear some ground, especially if they do what Shoobie said and they stay together for a prolonged period of time. Is that not a massive? It's a huge, huge win. I mean, in a year time, are we even going to be talking about the fact that the process probably dragged out for 2 weeks? Probably not. We're just going to be talking
that's
about
fair.
Yeah.
how exciting it was to watch that team, what they did for the UK scene. Realistically, best case scenario, those players move on to go to the tier 1, kind of top tier CS, even one of them, then surely the whole project's been a success.
100%.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I think like at the end of the day, like assuming Endpoint stick to their word, they will be given the facilities and the environment to succeed. It's just up to the players at that point.
Yeah.
And they're going to be given an opportunity in terms of the resources that they're going to have. Again, this is assuming Endpoint stick to their word, which they should do. They're going to be given resources that nobody else will. At our level in the scene. So that can only be a good thing, and it should accelerate them. The only question marks I'd have about the team, this is just from a CS perspective when I've been looking at it. Actually, 2 points. One is, I don't like how we were talking earlier about the makeup of a team. I don't really see an actual IGL in that process. Like that's actually achieved things.
I was about
like
to ask you that. I was about to ask you exactly that actually.
Yeah, and so I
I
haven't
think
really seen that. Oh, go on. Sorry.
I think to be fair, like I think Archer Ace is probably the only person in that group of players that I think he's had a bad rap in a lot of the teams. Like I know there's a big joke goes around that he's played like so many seasons of Open or whatever that goes around, but I do think he's a good player and got a good understanding of the game. And I think he's not had the best of opportunities in that sense. But he is the only person in that group of players from what I've seen that is, who's done it before. Like there could be someone in there who could just suddenly be like a really great IGL and kind of flourishes. But yeah, I do agree with you on that. I've not seen many players in there that strike me as IGLs.
But isn't that the whole problem with the UK scene, though? I mean, just then Shoobie's one of the more
That's
well-known
true.
IGLs, and you're struggling to think of 5 even there. So who do you put through that process?
No, that's true.
It's just an
That's
unfortunate
definitely true.
situation, isn't it? Really, where we are, and it speaks more to the UK mindset as we don't really care
Yeah.
about our IGLs that much, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. But yeah, so I mean, that's the first. I was trying to think. There was a second point I was going to make.
Sorry, I've cut you off.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Nah, it's all good. I've lost it, but it's all good. It probably weren't
Yeah,
important anyways.
So just overall to clarify, I'm in favour of the whole Endpoint Academy. I think it could have been handled better, but I think even they know that. So so everything we've said is just been devil's advocate, and we're probably going to be talking about this on the podcast long after the whole process is done as well, and we'll be covering that too.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be good to
100%.
see kind of how it goes because we've made a lot of speculation, as we've all said. So
Yeah.
have to wait and see
At the end
how
of the
that
day,
works.
like I think we all want it to do well. I mean, at least I'd hope so, because the way that I see it from my point of view, I'd want any UK team to do well, because if any UK team improves, then that improves the whole scene. That's always been my philosophy.
Yeah,
So
Definitely.
I hope it does well. Again, just to reiterate the point, I don't like the way that they've gone about it, but
yeah.
it's a learning process. I mean, who knows? Maybe they like if they have to pick up a new player, maybe they're going to refine the process a bit, or whatever else. Who knows? But yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, until it's all done, said and done, what can we really say about the whole? It's all speculation at this point for us.
Exactly.
So unfortunately,
Exactly.
there's not really much we can say.
We're having a nice little I've glancing over every now and
Yeah,
again, a little war in our chat.
I'm just looking at the chat.
Let's not get into that.
I'm not.
Let's not get into that.
I'm just gonna let people know I'm not banned anyone yet because everyone's been relatively civil. So as long as it stays like that, we're all good because it's all fair debate. I mean, these are all kind of points, pretty fair and reasonable points that people are bringing up. Nothing that we wouldn't say on here, so I don't think it's fair to get involved in the chat.
Yeah,
That's the one.
Let's get away from that little subject before there is a little war. Let's go to the little the other game. Let's talk about the other game.
Oh, Voldemort.
Valorant. What do you think? What do you think it's doing to our scene? Do you think it's a good thing? I mean, we spoke a little bit earlier about how it was kind of getting rid of the gatekeepers. Have you got any interest in that at all, or are you firmly CS player?
Oh, from a playing perspective, no, I hate the game.
Yeah.
I've tried playing it. It just doesn't appeal to me. It's I just find it weird. Like you move a lot slower in the game compared to CS, but then you have people jumping about and flying about and all sorts of projectiles everywhere. So for me, it doesn't do it for me. But that's just it's my opinion. In terms of what it's doing to that scene, I think I kind of touched on it before. I think it's a good thing personally because
getting rid of the top end.
Moves a lot of the top end that kind of is taking away opportunities for the rest, and also a lot of the old players that were toxic have kind of moved on, which I like, and it just gives a chance for the younger players that are hungry and more willing to show what they're able to do. It gives them the room and opportunity to do so. So personally, I like it.
I mean, we've seen what's happening in NA that's been a massive one, isn't it? Really. I mean, hopefully we can have that here as well, and some big teams coming through.
Yeah.
Well, going it back into CSN. You've played for some really well-known teams. One on Orgs, Revenge, IGI, as you said, Lions Creed. You mentioned earlier that you thought that Lions Creed team that was together for like 10, 11 months. Do you think you still think that was your best team? Thinking about it, that was your best team.
In terms of level that we reached, 100%.
Yeah,
that was, I think, the highest level of CS I was playing was in that team in terms of individually and also as a team. That was I'm seeing Fear the Roar from Rory and Fluffs in the chat. Yeah, no, that lineup for me was the best lineup I've been a part of. I think specifically the lineup with Rory in it. So when it was me, Fluffs, Ivan, Yelm, and Cripes. I think that was the best lineup I was a part of. Like we were playing at a very high level. Like, we were all in inters, but we were doing very well. And at LAN, we had some decent upset results. I do feel like if we had a chance to carry on improving at the rate we were improving with in that team, to this day, I keep on saying if, as in at this point in time, if Rory never moved on and we carried on in that team from then till now, I genuinely think we'd be like an advanced level team. Like I feel like we were just improving so much, and like we had the right mindset and we were going about things the right way, like so much. So it is a shame that team didn't work out at the end. But yeah, I think that was the best lineup I was a part of.
Do you think, kind of following on with that, do you think that was the most do you think that lineup had the most potential, or was there another lineup that you felt like could have been better than that lineup as well?
I think in terms of in terms of players I played with, I think that lineup as a taking a lot of things into account, the level of players I was with, and again the makeup of that team was so strong, and roles suited everybody well, attitude, culture, like everything was so good in that team. Like we all got along, we were all mates first. We rolled everything slot and fit. There were certain things that we would have had to change and improve on, but I don't doubt ourselves that we would have been able to do that. Like I do think that, if we could have carried on going in that team, we would have been something special. But things happen, and it's what it is.
Yeah. Bit of a more personal question now. Which player did you think you had the best chemistry with? Like, which player were you like, I'm in a 2v3, 2v4. Who do you want next to you in that situation? Who do you think you had the best chemistry with?
Out of any player or in that team specifically?
Everyone you've played with, yeah. Shoot.
I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if I was. It's kind of a tough question.
Probably piss off some of your old teammates. But
that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
Who are you going to annoy the most by saying the name?
I'm trying to think.
I could just go myself. I think I'm the best player I've ever played with. Shoobie's the best player he's ever played with.
No, genuinely, in that team, I think Fluffs would be up there, because the thing with Fluffs is that So one, he could take over a mid-round call if needed be. Like if need be, if say for example, if I was just being quiet for whatever reason, he could be strong enough to just like overtake the calling for that specific situation. But also like if I would say something, even like and I've realized this, like even if he thought it was wrong, he would just go with it. And like only after the game would he bring it up and be like, yeah, okay, that like we could have done this. So it's
Yeah.
like it's more the second point for me, which I like somebody that has no hesitation that if something is called, you go with it, even if it's the wrong call, because like it's a classic saying,
That's
but
fucking hard to do. That
yeah,
is hard to do when you
even if
disagree with something.
exactly, even if something is the wrong call, if everybody's on the same page and doing something together, which is like if everybody's on the same page doing the wrong call, that has a higher percentage chance of working out than doing the right thing in a disorganized way. You
Yeah,
know
I'd
what I
agree
mean?
100%. Hmm.
But to be honest, that whole team was like that, I think. Like it did take a while to stamp that mindset into that team, but I did make it clear with them that even if I'm calling something wrong, I want you guys to do it. And
Hmm.
after the game, we'll figure out if it was right or wrong. And we'll talk about it there and then.
Probably makes
But
your job a lot
yeah.
easier as well, because it's like you can get, instead of it kind of being a bit muddled, you get a really clear idea. If everyone commits, you get a really clear
Yeah.
idea of whether that works or that doesn't work, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. And like something I always say is, as like how people say that like, oh, you earn respect of your players or whatever. I always say that if you're in a team, the IGL should be given respect until they lose it. And what I mean by that
Hmm.
is if you're joining a team, the IGL shouldn't have to prove to you that they're like a good caller or that you should believe in their call. Like you should just do
Definitely.
it
Hmm.
until until it gets to a point where they consistently make the wrong call. Then you can start to lose a bit of faith in them. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you should give them the utmost respect and everything, because then that's how a team functions. Like if you believe in their call, even if you don't truly believe in it, if you just make it out that you believe in it
You
and
commit.
actually follow
Yeah.
it, commit
Hmm.
to it, see if it works. If it don't work, then you can talk about it after and adjust things. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would say.
Is there any roster out there right now that you're looking at and thinking that's an underrated team that's going to cause upsets? Do you think there's a team out there right now that's like that? I mean, I've heard people say Hypnotic before, but I think they're quite established now as a good team, despite what's happened to them in their playoff run. Is there another team out there that you think's like an upset potential?
If you're talking upset potential, I'd definitely say socially. I think they've
Hmm.
they've like they're that sort of team that I've said they've been together for a while now. They've been together like 2, 3 seasons or so, and like they've got decent players. If they're the sort of team that if they click, like if they're on the ball that day, they will upset and take maps, even be a freeze from you. I would also say Buzzkill, I think, is a team that is severely underrated in my opinion. But at the same time, with Buzzkill, like and I don't know why it is. It does seem like when they're in a big game, like they don't necessarily perform. Like the EPS qualifier, I think, is the thing that's coming to mind. And I might be, maybe they were using a sub or something. I can't remember. But I feel like they played a no-name team or a no-name mix and they got destroyed. I might be wrong in saying that. Somebody in chat will probably correct me if I am. But like on paper, they've got a good roster. Even with the Stempy pickup as well now, like they've got a good lineup, a good makeup of a roster. Like
Hmm.
that is a roster that if they prac and if they do the right things, they can do like cause some damage, I reckon.
The Buzzkills who we're looking out for, then that's who we should
Yeah.
be tuning into
I
for the
think I
dark
think
horse runs.
Buzzkill have a higher seeding than the socially roster do right now. But I think
Hmm.
socially is at a higher level than Buzzkill is right now,
Oh, really? Okay.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
Buzzkill
yeah.
have like in my opinion, Buzzkill have more potential, but socially is like
Better
at a higher
now.
level than right now.
Yeah.
That's where I see
Okay.
it.
It'll be interesting to see where they both end up in the Cash Cup coming up in a month's
Yeah,
time. See
exactly.
where both those teams are at.
Yeah.
So I just spoke a little. I mentioned Hypnotic. They've recently lost to I think it was a 9-17. I don't know if it was in Open or Inters. I can't remember now. But they played really well in the like the regular season, and then they have fluffed it in playoffs. Do you think that's going to be a big issue for like such a not a new team, but they're quite a young team? Do you think that's going to cause a lot of issues? Do you think there'll be people that are wanting to leave after that, or do you think they're going to firm that out?
I mean, yeah, especially considering two of the players are in the endpoint academy process still.
Yeah,
I think they're definitely going to be eyeing that up now. Like, at least I would if I was in that situation. Not gonna lie.
yeah.
I mean,
I can imagine
it's a
that's putting a lot
shame.
of strain on them all.
Yeah, it's a shame. Like that roster, they've got a good makeup of players. They've got good dedicated players. Like, and they've got a good mix. They've got young up and coming players. They've got players like something like Conzi that's a grinder and putting time in. Like that, it's a good makeup of players. It's just at the end of the day, if you don't get results in the short term, players will start looking at other opportunities if it's given to them. So I
Yeah.
think as much as I mean, I even see Kiss me in the chat. Like, as much as I wouldn't, I don't want that team to fall apart or anything like that. If I was like a Gizme or a Wolfie, I would be, you would at least have to entertain Endpoint Academy or anything else at this point.
Definitely, yeah. So that's an opportunity they probably aren't going to turn down at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a shame if, like, say that doesn't work out for some of them, but then they take offers from other teams. That'd be a shame, I think, because having like one off day, I really hope that doesn't, really kind of fuck that team up excessively.
Yeah.
Who do you think, that team or any other team in the UK right now, who do you think's the upcomer? Who do you think somebody that's like really individually is really underrated, but is, going to do bits soon? Is there any player out there that you've seen that you think that player is going to be something?
Actually, somebody that I just played the Steel Series Cup qualifier with, Zimzy. That
Mhm.
guy to me comes. I mean, I've only had one experience with him, so who knows? Maybe it's a
He's gonna
one-off.
go off on the chat now. So
Is he being in chat? I haven't actually
he's
noticed
been.
in the
He's
chat
popped
if
in.
he is.
Yeah, he's popped in. I
Okay,
think once.
Zimzy. So I played this Cash Cup with him, and he's that sort of player that he was just, like, respecting calls. He was like trusting in his teammates, things that you wouldn't expect a young player to do. Like, he wasn't necessarily just playing for himself. He was doing a lot of other things, and like I proper, like, when I see that, I proper like respect it.
Mhm.
Like, he isn't. I haven't really heard much from him, and like, I mean, the biggest example was on the first day of the qualifier. It was a bit of a shaky BO3 from us. We lost a map to, like, no offense to him, but like to no names and stuff. And after the whole series, all of us boys were like, "Oh, that was a bit of a tough one." And he was instantly like, "Yeah, it was tough. Anybody want to play a pug?" Like, instantly back on it.
Ready
Like,
to go
once,
in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, I like that.
Get
Like,
me back in the game.
yeah, I like
Mhm.
seeing a grinder. You know what I mean? Like, I like
Good
seeing somebody that
mentality.
just
Yeah.
wants to play the game. So like, yeah, I'll definitely say him. But he's the one that I would highlight because I think, like, again, it was a really small like sample size, but from what I've seen, he's got a good attitude. But there's a lot of players with a lot of skill that they give them half a year to a year, they could come through. Like, we were talking about Regan earlier, we were talking about Gizme just now, Wolfie just now, like Dreamy from Buzzkill, Moshi from Socially. Like, there's so many players that are fairly young that are starting to come through and starting to get opportunities. And if they take those opportunities, they will just grow and keep on going. Like,
Mhm.
it's I think give the scene half a year to a year. If those players actually fix up and have correct attitudes and go about things the right way, then yeah, the scene's going to be looking pretty good soon, I think.
Yeah. No, that's a load of great players there you just mentioned that have a lot of opportunities out there that could definitely go places.
Yeah.
But you're gonna go? Is it Zimzy? I think you said, is that his name?
Zimzy, yeah.
Zimzy. He's the one you're
Yeah.
gonna go for, yeah? That's your pick.
That's the
That's your
one I would
choice.
go for because from what I've seen, it seems like he has the better attitude out of all of those, and from things I've heard as well.
Mhm.
But again, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, that is at the end of the day, isn't it? It's just you never know really in the end. No matter what
exactly.
pundits are saying, you just don't know in any sort
You
of
don't know.
sport,
Yeah.
esport, whatever. So, kind of specifically to you now, what's your future looking like? Have you got anything in the works, or are we still just keeping it on the down low, staying in mixing? What are you saying?
I'm enjoying time off. I'm about to go play Red Dead Redemption 2. No, I've
Having a break, huh?
yeah, a bit of a break. I mean, especially after the previous lineup, and how that was kind of just a massive failure, to be honest. Like, it's one of them where it's always good to take a bit of a break and a bit of a sit back and just reevaluate things. Like, I'm kind of, yeah, I'm looking to improve from the previous scenario that I was just in. So I think in terms of upcoming, what I want to do, I do want to just take a bit of time off, let the season play out, see what players become available, things like that. I am probably looking to build a team for the next season. Not 100% on that, but I'm kind of like 80%, 90% sure that that's what I kind of want to do. I'm just looking to see if I can build the right team with the right players. If I can't do that, I'm not really going to force it. And I'll just sit the season out. I am open to offers, so if any offer comes knocking my way, I'll definitely be sure to entertain it and see what it is. But yeah, I think for now, just taking a sit back, relaxing, letting things play out, focusing on myself a bit, and seeing what opportunities come my way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is crazy in esports that there's no break.
Mm,
Every sport on the planet they have time off.
yeah,
Esports, it's just you go hard the whole time, and I think that's why you get a lot of people get burnt out playing.
yeah, no,
Um,
exactly,
so
exactly,
yeah, it's probably quite nice to have a break and come back rejuvenated and ready to go, ready to grow and kind of thing.
yeah, 100%.
I mean, I hope whatever offer or whatever choice you kind of go for, really kind of works out for you. Is there anything you want to, any little comment, any little shout, anything you want to say before we look at some of the viewer questions we've got?
Nothing really. I mean, I'd like to obviously. I mean, we're not 100% done with this yet, but I'd like to thank you for inviting me here. It's been a good little convo we've had.
Yeah, no, it's nice
I
to
am
pick your
enjoying
brains.
this.
It's been good for me.
Yeah, no, it's an enjoyable thing to have to do every now and again. So yeah, that's the main thing I'd say really.
Appreciate that, man. Cheers.
No worries.
No,
What's
it's
your
great to have you on.
Twitter as well, Shoobie? Because I know everyone probably follows you here already, but it's always nice to get a little plug for yourself.
Shoobie_CSGO.
Right, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some questions here. Anyone in the chat now wants to put some questions in. Shoobie's got the chat up himself, so you can have a little look at it as well. But I did note down some chats we've had before, so I'm going to go through those with you now. Big one. When we see the return of Shoobie, that's kind of the big one, really. Like I know you kind of addressed that a little bit, and you're gonna go play some Red Dead, but the people want a date.
A date, Christ.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have a date myself yet. So yeah, I don't even have a date myself yet. I mean, to be honest, I think when the season officially ends, in a couple of weeks' time or whatever it is, I think that's when I'm going to start to look to see if there's something I want to do.
Yeah.
Unless I get an offer ahead of time. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So yeah, no exact date yet.
Well, to be fair, I mean, we're all welcoming you back when you come. I think we're all excited. I think everyone in the chat here, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a lot of love for Shoobie going on. So I think when he does make the return, it'll be well anticipated. And we also had, and this is something you did kind of cover on, but I think it's something that I think it was Carter that actually kind of asked it, and it's something I'd like to hear your opinion on. Basically, what's the current state of UK IGLs? How you approach it, as you're a bit of a unicorn at this point, because there aren't too many of them about, and kind of what you would do to improve the kind of progress of IGLs, how you would approach getting more IGLs in the scene, and kind of what are the criteria you're looking for people who could be IGLs.
So in terms of how to get, can you say the question again? Like
Sure.
I'll
break it down for you.
So how to get more IGLs?
Basically, could we do anything to get more IGLs in the UK scene specifically? And if so, what are the kind of type of traits you'd be looking for someone that has the potential to be? I know you said man management was a big one.
So in terms of how to get more IGLs in the scene, I think it boils down to the players themselves. At the end of the day, players don't want to become an IGL because, like I've said, and I've experienced as well, players don't respect IGLs in the scene. Like it's as simple as that. So for example, if if an IGL isn't going to get an opportunity to move up the ladder and is just going to constantly get screwed, why would somebody want to actively go into that position or in that role? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you want to be an IGL? Is what
exactly.
I always think,
Which isn't the I guess the motivating thing for me to say. But so I mean, what I would say is at the end of the day, it boils down to players. Like players need to be willing to respect IGLs and work with them. Like you're not going to get an IGL that's going to be able to call everything for you from day one. Even me right now, if I was to build a team tomorrow, I would literally say to that team, work with me for at least 2 months, and then we're going to start to see results. Because that's just how it is. Like you're not going to be able to build, an Unreal team overnight, and an IGL isn't going to be able to call for that team overnight. If they are, then there's some Unreal talent, and I've got a lot of respect for it. But
yeah, like IGL.
yeah, so it's one of them where the players which aren't the IGL, they need to work with the IGL to improve them and just be in a legit way. Like the IGL also needs to be willing to just say to the team, look, I made a mistake there. That was my bad on that call. Like it is a two-way thing. The thing that I'm trying to get at the end of the day, it's the scene as a whole. Like the culture of the scene needs to be more focused on improving as opposed to we want results. You know what I mean? We need to start thinking, okay, like, Shoobie, you messed up that call. Like, instead of going B here, we should have grouped up and gone A, something like that. As opposed to saying, oh, you know what, Shoobie, you're a dog caller, let's just get rid of you. you know what I mean?
Like, a little bit, yeah. Those knee-jerk reactions to immediately.
Yeah. There's a different way to go about it. That's what I'd say.
Well, the other another one of questions on that was, your opinions on current IGLs in the UK. Now I know you struggle to think of some off the top of your head, but it has, it's been about an hour, so maybe hopefully a couple more have popped in.
Yeah. So current IGLs in the scene. I mean, I'm gonna not look at like the top teams, because I think it's obvious to say that they're good IGLs or whatever. But if we're looking, let's say roughly main down or like Inter's down, I've heard Operation Safe Spot, like LVN's picking up IGL is what I've heard, which I think is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for them guys. If we're looking a bit further down, so for Buzzkill, they've got Fetis, who, from what I hear and from what I've seen, that guy is a grinder. Like, he's putting time in. So I've always got respect for people like that. Socially, Reese, that's actually somebody I forgot to mention earlier. When you're talking about upcoming players or whatever, that guy puts time in, from what I've seen.
Definitely.
So he's a bit of a grinder. I've got respect for him. Who else is there? I'm trying to think what other teams there are. I mean, the obvious one is Konzi as well from Hypnotic, right? Like, he's, that team that he's built is a half decent team. Whether it sticks, who knows? But yeah, he's been doing some decent things there as well. So I mean, and from Kitsune, so Carter, who asked the question, I think he's going to be picking up IGL from what I hear.
All right.
I think he's got potential to be a good IGL. Like, I think he's somebody that, in my opinion, can nail down the man management side of things, the being a leader. It's just making sure that he brings up the in-game side as well. But I've got faith in him to be the sort of player that can do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those would be like the
kind of the top picks. Yeah, the short list for you.
The short list for me, if you're excluding the
the big boys, the
UMXs and all of that. Yeah. Because it's always nice to look a bit lower.
Well, this is one of my questions I had for you. Sometimes I pop some down while I'm listening away. But I was wondering, we did touch on obviously Endpoint Academy, and we won't go on about it too long because it seems to be a dumpster fire in the chat. So, but we did also say there was a real lack of IGLs. I mean, I think we said one in that short list that's been left, kind of there. With the players that are in that currently, as someone who's pretty well known for being an IGL, it's is there a group of players there, 4 players you think you personally could pick? Oh, you have to name them, but you think you could do something with the people that are in that shortlist? Because obviously they are some great talents in that list.
In the Endpoint Academy shortlist?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. They've got some good players there. So, I mean, if you want, I could even name them.
Like, go. Let's see your dream team.
So Zimzy, as I mentioned before, he'd be in there. Jack B would be in there. Somebody like Crypt could be in there if you wanted somebody a bit more supportive. If you're trying to think about building up the team, Archrace could be in there. Somebody who's supportive. Dexy could be in there, but I mean, the only issue I would see about the Endpoint Academy shortlist right now is there's many Orpas. There's Dexy, Clay, Jack. I think there's another one as well, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm misremembering. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, those are just players off the top of my head. There's, Wolfie and Gizmy as well on the list, right? So there's definitely players that you could build a decent roster out of in that Endpoint Academy shortlist.
So this is us of our way reaching out to Endpoint Academy and saying, put Shoobie in the shortlist. And there's an IGL for you.
Yeah, I'm on as the IGL. Yeah.
We do have some slightly more joke questions to leave it off on. We've also got the chat. We're pretty interested in seeing ALCAN's absolutely massive glass that he keeps kind of drinking out of. That's Stein.
It's a German Stein pint. Yeah, it's a 2-pint mug. That's what I'm drinking out of. So I can be lazy as fuck. I don't need to get up and constantly go and get more water.
Oh, nice warm water out of Stein.
Oh. Mate, there's enough water in there that it doesn't go hot, mate. It's great.
The other one is,
would highly recommend.
Obviously the chat were very concerned whether Shoobie had eaten today, and they wanted to know what he'd had for dinner because they were worried about his well-being. Bless him.
I eat good. Don't worry about that, guys. You can see it on me. I eat good. Don't worry about that.
I think everyone's eating good during COVID.
Yeah, we all. A bit of a current comment I'd like to get from you is I've just seen on just responding to Twitter notification. I've just seen that Chets have beat UMX in the final of that Steel Series, Steel Series Cup, I believe.
Wait, Chets won like the whole BO3?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think they 2-0'd it. I'm pretty sure. If I'm
does it have the maps?
What any thoughts on that?
Fair play. Give them props. The one I'm surprised UMX played though. I heard from somebody that they were going to play a ESEA playoffs game tonight. I might be wrong in saying that though, but
no, not sure.
Yeah, fair play to Chets. I mean, I don't know. When I played them, they're an interesting lot to play. If you want to talk stylistically, I've been saying this to a few people. Like when we played them, it feels like they hold W against you. Giving you no respect, which they can do. They're the overdogs, so they've got good players to do. And if that doesn't work, then it feels like they don't have much to fall back on. But I guess they've just formed, so I'm not too sure. But I don't know. Maybe that's a naive way of looking at it from me.
I mean, we were talking earlier about like IGL installs and what kind of style you want to go for. I think from what I've seen from I think a previous interview that Swaggy's done before, he talked about doing like a very loose style and doing like they don't do proper execs, they just group up and pop somewhere quite a lot and playing quite a loose style. And it seems to be working out well for them. They're just beating UMX. So yeah, I mean, you know, any thoughts on that style? I mean, you've seen that style as kind of holding W. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know. When they played against us, I wouldn't, not in a flamey way. It just felt like, so one of the first things I said in this convo that we've had is you need you need multiple styles. And you need, then you have your main style that you do. That's your bread and butter. But if that doesn't work, you need to have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
When we played them yesterday, it felt like their main style was holding W, and if that works, cool. Like it did work for them on 2 maps against us. But when it didn't work for them, when they tried to like just do a typical default, box standard default, it didn't feel like there was much substance to it. But again, that might have just been an off map for them. Who knows? Like maybe it was an off game from them. I don't even know if they've pracked much because I know that they've been changing lineups and all sorts. So again, maybe a one-off, and maybe it was just loose corner from them. But that's just something I noticed when we were playing against them.
Yeah. Okay. Have you got is there any more questions that you want to pop through?
We do, yeah. I must have missed it, so blame me, guys. I'm the the chat mod, and it slipped through my hands there. Whitey had a good question. I think I kind of got lost in the absolute war about the Endpoint Academy, so it must have popped up just around then. Basically, why does Shoobie think there might be a lack of funding in the UK when it comes to organisations specifically? Now, the teams that he gave an example are the XJ guys and the UMX guys. Considering proportionally how well UMX are doing, for example.
So why is there a lack of funding for top end teams compared to before? I mean, one of the things I've been saying for years, and it's why I'm happy that Valorant has come along and kicked a lot of the top players out. Maybe this is a naive way of thinking from me, but I don't think it is. I've seen a lot of the top end players of the past essentially just rinse orgs out of their money. Not showing any real growth, not actually steady putting the time in. Essentially, just going in there, getting a cheeky salary for a few months, rinsing the org of their money, and then just dipping and not providing any real value or benefit to the orgs. And I think for a lot of orgs, it's stained them. You see orgs like, for example, Fierce aren't about anymore. I don't think London have been in CS anymore for a while now. I don't think Wind and Rain have been in. There's, I'm not saying those orgs specifically encountered this, but those are just top orgs that were in the scene
that
and
have
not
dropped
anymore.
out.
Yeah, and it's like, if things like that are happening, like eventually these orgs are gonna, they're gonna wise up a bit and they're gonna be like, okay, if players from that scene is rinsing us of our money, we're not gonna trust any of you guys. You don't deserve it. So I think that's definitely tainted a lot of them for us.
100%. Yeah.
Which is it's frustrating for players like us, but is what it is. We've just got to deal with it. I think it comes back to what you were saying as well, though. Like, as much as a lot of those orgs have died down and gone away, there have also been other orgs coming up and trying to capitalize off the situation. So there's a bit of a balance. I don't think we're seeing the same money that we've seen before, but there is a new wave of orgs coming through.
Yeah, I think until LANCS kind of returns again, I don't think we're likely to see that. But it's Whitey's made a good point in the chat there. It's there are a lot of teams, especially pre-COVID, whatever, during COVID, whatever. There are a lot of teams with zero direction purely because like you said, roster changes and teams not staying together is very common in the UK scene. So we're seeing organizations fund teams, for example, who've got no direction, break up, and now they've lost money on the funding. You know what I mean? So it's skepticism, I suppose, to get back in.
That's a fair point.
We've got also Regan says hi.
Hi Regan.
And White had another good question. This is one, especially you've been around for quite a while, and you've also been quite a prominent player for quite a while as well. So it's someone you're probably one of the best people to ask. Is how do you think the attitudes have changed in the scene? Do we think egos have gotten worse compared to say 3 years ago, for example, or they've gotten better? Regardless of the Valorant purge, really, because I know a couple of the toxic boys have popped over there.
Yeah. Attitude wise, I think we're starting to see a new wave of like hungrier players, like players that do want it. I think we're starting to see a lot more of them come through now, which I think is only a good point. Ego wise, it's on the flip side. I am also seeing like some of these players, like nowadays, they're coming through and they've kind of got an ego off of nothing. Maybe a random online tournament result here or there, or something like that. So it's, again, with everything, there's a bit of a balance. Like certain players need to realize that, look, you haven't. I mean, even me to this day, I'm not one of these players that will sit here and be like, I've achieved this,
Mhm.
because the way that I see it in my mind is I haven't achieved anything. Like I'm trying to reach for the next level, reach for the highest possible achievement I can. And I think a lot of these players need to adopt a similar mindset where you shouldn't be happy, you shouldn't be satisfied with a certain placement or a
Yeah.
certain random tournament win or something like that. Like you need to be striving for more. That's how you improve. That's how you grow.
Well, this is interesting that ALCAN's for years said something very similar. Is, do you want to be a pro or do you want to be a UK pro? I mean,
Yeah.
and this
Yeah,
kind of
that's it.
harkens back. I mean, what's the ceiling for you? And if you're happy winning, no disrespect to those Czechs guys, now that I've just kind of won that Clash Cup, if that was the final, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. If it's going to really speak to them whether that's going to be where they end, or is that going to be good enough for them? Are they hungry to go on, displace UMX? Could they go forward and do that?
I think from what I've seen of like those players, they're definitely reaching. I think, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not as plugged in as I used to be because I'm not actually in the scene anymore. But I think they're definitely reaching, which is why they were searching for an org for a good while, and they're looking to improve, which is why I think they've beaten UMX in this tournament, is because those players are really reaching, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you think, Shoobie?
Not gonna lie, I missed the original point because I was getting spammed. But wait, can you repeat the point again, please?
Go on, Harky.
Basically, what about Whitey's question? Or about the kind of, do you want to be top of the UK scene or do you want to be a top player?
Oh,
Yeah,
top
kind
of the UK. Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, do you think players are going to be satisfied with being the top of the UK scene, or are they reaching for
they
being
shouldn't be.
proper tier ones?
They shouldn't be. You should be like, I know this is maybe a cringy thing for me to say, but you should be thinking of top of the world. Like that's, in my opinion, that's what you should be aiming for. Top of the UK is great, and that should be a milestone that you celebrate. That should be something that you should be aiming to achieve, and you should celebrate that once you reach there. But you should be aiming for more. If you really want to push this scene forward and push yourselves forward, don't settle for just top of this scene. Think bigger, because that's how you improve. That's how you get yourself out there. That's how you take it to the next level. You should be thinking bigger picture. That's
Yeah,
the way I
definitely.
see
I mean, as you said, it's a milestone to be the best UK team or one of the best
100%,
UK
yeah.
players, but it's not the destination that you should be looking at.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
In the last recent years, have we really seen anyone that's had that kind of drive? I mean, I think there's a couple of UK players
Mezzi's probably.
but people that have made the jump over to tier ones, yes, and unfortunately, I mean, they get there and it's comfy, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's whether you've got the drive to be what's the boxer's name? Bless his heart, the one that died quite recently. Alcan, you might know the one where he says he's very hard to get out of bed in the morning when you've got satin sheets. It's kind of thing. Once you've made it,
Yeah.
do you want to keep
You've
grinding?
got enough to work for, yeah.
Yeah. We've got from Whitey again. Whitey, you are feeding these questions. Let's keep it up. Top 5 up and coming players in your eyes. I know you said Zimzi, and I think you said was Fluff up and coming, or is it more your top?
Not in any particular order. So, by up and coming, by the way, I'll try to think of people that haven't really been given a chance at the top of the scene or anything like that, right? So, in no particular order, Zimzi. I would say Reese personally, because I think that guy, if he carries on grinding,
he's been in the chat. He'll be popping up now.
Yeah. Reese, Regan, if he fixes up on certain things, he could be up there.
Yeah.
Who else would I say? I guess I would. Not sure, because then there's like 4 other players that you could say. But I guess for now, let's just say like Moshi and Gizmi. But you could also put Wolfie in there. You could also put Dreamy in there. Like, that's the thing. It's a good thing that I'm saying stuff like this because there's a lot of promising players that could come through.
Well, so. you've jinxed them all now, apparently.
Let's see.
We've got some questions. What's your opinion on the new Havoc lineup? I'm looking at
new Havoc lineup.
Yeah. Because
that got released today, I think. I can grab
it. I didn't see it. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I know Woods is in it. I saw that much. MMS, Al, Aura, PW, Chaos, Woods, and Oscar.
Oscar is in Oscar VR?
Yeah, the super talent. That one, I'm pretty sure.
Decent lineup. I mean, who knows? I think it's one of those lineups you're not going to see any immediate results from. If they grind and improve,
let's go.
Who knows? You know, maybe I assume they'll be playing in Inters right now, right? Chaos and Aura, they were in the previous Havoc lineup, right? Or am I misremembering?
I'm not sure. I'll be fully
out of my
honest.
depth as well, to be fair. So, I mean, Oscar's in
Okay.
the chat, so I'm sure he'll tell us.
I
While
assume they're playing Inters. Oh, Chaos is there as well. If that's the same Chaos.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Inters. Woods has just said it. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Inters,
it's one of them. If they start procking from now, start grinding, start improving, who knows? Maybe they can get main next season. It's not, you know, I say it's not particularly hard. It is pretty hard to get main because it's a bit of a elo. It's kind of like elo hell Inters is, but you know you can have some good results potentially. Woods and you guys. So yeah, just it's one of the. I don't think you're going to see immediate results, but if you just grind and work at it, then
well,
yeah.
yeah, I'll say this: Woods is in the team, so you know the other four lads, you might be lovely boys, but I hope it crash and burns.
Ooh, blame on.
This is a good question, Hunter 4K. Top UK team. So who's the big dog? Like who is by far ranked number one? Big dominant boys. I mean, we've just seen UMX, you know, lose there in that final as we've got the news live.
I'm just
But
gonna
Yeah,
preface
but
by
Chet's
saying we
isn't.
don't
go on.
count endpoint because it's two UK.
Oh
I'm
yeah, of
assuming,
course.
right?
yeah,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
endpoint or EU lineup as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Saying in the in the same like in the same boat page, whatever you want to say. Chet's also aren't technically a UK lineup.
Are
Oh
they only
wait,
two?
Ping,
I know Ping
Swaggy,
and Swaggy are both UK. I
Ents.
don't know.
Oh, I guess if you count. Oh, Ents isn't picked up 100%. I guess so. Who knows?
I thought a lot of the Chets guys were kind of like dual. Kind of some of them were UK, but some of them were not.
So Ents would be that guy for them. At least that's what he
Yeah,
was in the Steel Series thing. I don't know if they've picked him up. I guess if Swaggy's in chat, maybe he could say yes or no. But yeah, so they would be up there. I think that I would say the trio, but okay, so the duo I would say is kind of like Chet / UMX, right? I guess those would be the two that are up there.
yeah.
But I would say Zaren's Jeans, but you know they're just looking for three.
Hmm.
And Swaggy's just said no, so they haven't picked up Ents yet. So I guess you can't even say them technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So UMX is the top dog, I guess,
Yeah,
in
it's
the
got
UK
to be
scene right
UMX
now.
at the moment then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having a look here. Alcan, I think this one's directed at you. But Shoobie, you know, feel free to get your opinion. Have you seen the new changes to Aura's recent lineup?
I think it was. I think I saw Cypher got picked up. What was the other
Yeah,
pickup?
so it was minus ZNX and Hoy plus MBL and Cypher.
I think, given that, I think I saw. I could be wrong on this. I could be corrected. I think I saw on the Twitter that there was some time constraint issues, which I think make it really hard to drop players with players to leave because they want to play, but they just haven't got the time. I think that makes it really hard. But I think if it genuinely was a time issue that they've had, then getting new players that can commit is going to be great for them. You know, whether those players are better or worse, it almost won't matter if they're willing to put in more time. They have the time to put in, and that'll undoubtedly be a better team in my eyes because those players are there. You know, they're ready to go. They're ready to grind.
Yeah.
And I think as well, you know, Cypher's played with Emperor and under Emperor as a coach for, you know, years as far as I'm aware. So I think he'll slot into that system really easily, and that's going to be really easy for them. I don't know how much MBL's played with those guys, but I know he's a really fucking good player and on an individual level. So I think that'll probably end up going really well for them. I think ZNX probably. I could be wrong on this, but I think ZNX probably the best player out of those group of players on purely on like previous performance. But I think he was one of the ones having a time issue constraint. So
Yeah.
if that, you know, if those two players that have been picked up don't have those time issues, then I think that'll be a better team, definitely.
It's always sad
Yeah.
to see that when it's kind of out of you know things you can't control really.
Yeah,
Off the
exactly.
server. But what it did actually gives us a question for you, Shoobie and Alcan. Basically, kind of similar to that really is: do we think? Obviously, we've not seen UKCS dominate for forever, really. So what do we think the biggest contributing factors? Does it tend to be, you know, on the server in-game kind of ability, or is it out of, you know, off the server things like that, like time constraints, attitude, egos, things like that? I mean, do we think we've got the people with the mechanical ability to do it, or is it just you know, mixes, roster changes? What's the biggest factor we would say?
I think our scene is one of the most talented out there if you're talking from a pure mechanical point of view. We've got some very high skill players playing in some fairly low teams. If
Yeah.
you think, like, if you took a UK Open team versus, like, I don't know, a Danish Open team, realistic, like from a pure skill point of view, the UK team probably would win. You know what I mean? Like skill wise,
100%.
we've got highly skilled players in our team, but at the same time, it's kind of like on the flip side, that's kind of all they focus on, and it's
100%.
not just that. It's like one of the biggest things I've been saying to like my group of like people on Children Team Speak on or whatever. It's like when you go into a pug, like how many times has this happened where you go into a pug against like a Danish 5-stack or something, and you're just sat there saying, "Oh, like these guys are pracking," or stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like, "Oh, this is long. Like they're executing it against us."
Mm.
Like like wasn't it Russ that had that tweet where he was like against a Norwegian 5-stack on train, and they were just blinding
Flash
him
a million
constantly.
times.
Yeah. It's like when you play against players from these other scenes, when they're going into pugs, they're playing as if it's like a legit game. Like they are fully focused, ensuring, and like they're committing to their good habits. You know what I mean? Like they're playing super serious 100% of the time.
Mm.
And I think in our scene, we kind of lack that. I mean, Maz
I
just said
agree.
there, prac on face it is the best prac. Like legit, as
I
much
th-
as people meme it
yeah.
and stuff, it genuinely is like that's something that people in our scene need to start understanding. Like, and I think, for example, PL can be such a like PL can be a very good place for the scene. Like going back to your previous question, like you said earlier in this convo about what do I think of how Endpoint have restructured PL or whatever, right? And this is kind of the point I'm trying to make with it is it's all good and well them doing that, and yeah, sure, it's brought a bit more interest into it, but at the end of the day, it's up to the players within the games to actually focus on those games and treat it like a legit scrim or something like that. Like that's how you're going to improve. Because if everybody decided tomorrow, like just flick of a switch, we decided, yo boys, we're gonna play this legit, like as if it's a legit team game, you can actually start to learn from the scenarios and actually be like, oh wait, that messed up because of XYZ.
Yeah.
Next time I'll be able to do this instead. You know what I mean? Like, and it just takes that flick of a switch to start treating it seriously and actually like, and I know that kind of sounds a bit of an oxymoron, I guess, because at the end of the day, we're playing a game and it should be fun. But you can have fun being serious and being competitive.
What's
You know
more
what I
fun
mean?
than winning,
100%.
to be fair?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that 100%. I think it comes down to an attitude issue as well. Like, I honestly view the UK scene as just a mini NA. Like,
Mm,
if
yeah.
you listen to like any like top NA pro or coaches from NA or analysts, they all say the same thing about NA, where it's like they've got these super talented players, but they don't have the discipline to kind of capitalize on it. Like
Yeah.
all these other scenes, like you mentioned, the Danish Open teams, they're not like incredibly talented individual players yet. I mean, they
Yeah.
probably do develop into them, but they just take it much more seriously and have much more of a rounded game. Like they're not after those insane like 4K spray transfers that are going to get
Yeah.
you clout. They just want to
I've
win. Whereas we're
it,
like, what's going to get me like the most like Twitter action, and my
yeah.
stats going to be really good, so I can get better teams. They're going, fuck all that shit. Let's go and win. And I think that's the thing that EU does better than we do, and then NA does. They don't care about the flashy stuff in my eyes.
Yeah. I think like I feel like other players are playing the game to improve and to figure out how can I make less mistakes, whereas we're trying to play and be like, yo, let me see if I can get like a sick clip I could put on Twitter. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? It's like
Yeah, we're playing for
you know,
flash, whereas other teams are
yeah,
playing to win and learn, kind of thing.
yeah.
So
Alright,
I'd say
well,
that'd be my answer on it.
I think that kind of wraps us up here. That's pretty much all of the viewer questions. We do have one more question. This is something I like to ask everyone that we've had on, and I plan on doing it for the foreseeable future. Who would you like to have on first? And bear in mind, we've got near enough 50 live viewers now, so whoever you say should be peer pressured enough to come on. So you got your pick of
Like
the
who would
litter.
I like?
Yeah,
Who would I like for you to have on here?
yeah. Who's
Yeah.
your next? You
Okay,
can
let's.
basically vote for someone that we can hopefully get on in the coming future.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm trying to find somebody entertaining for you guys. I
Oh,
reckon Jack.
there's
I
a load of
reckon.
first at least.
I mean, I'm seeing Mezzy in the chat. That's an obvious one if you want to get
Mm.
somebody high up. Jack B would be entertaining.
Good
Is
content.
there anybody else? I reckon. Yeah, I reckon Jack B. I reckon Jack B's the guy to go for.
Jack B's your recommendation?
Jack, mate.
Or I
That'll
mean,
be a content stream.
yeah, there's three options actually. Mezzy if you want, the serious. Oh, how do you improve and become better? Jack
Yeah.
B if you want entertainment, and Whitey if you just want everything. So there
All
you
of
go.
it. Pure content stream.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with, so
Okay.
we were saying Jack B, Messi, and Whitey are the picks we're going for. So we'll see you guys at some point in the future. And
Yeah.
it's on a live stream now, so you have to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
All right.
Cheers, cheers. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's been great to pick your brain. It's a longer episode than we normally do, but it's all been really
Well
good.
worth it.
So
Well
thank you
worth
very
it.
much. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys bringing me on. I super enjoyed this. So
Hey, you're always welcome.
Thank you for
back, man.
everyone that's thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
everyone who's tuned in. Hopefully we'll see you later on next week.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Take care, guys. That's us.